Sellafield's purpose as a company is to create a clean and safe environment for future generations. We've now started perhaps our most iconic job in delivering that purpose, getting the waste out of the most hazardous building on the Sellafield site, the Magnox Swarf Storage Silo. It's a legacy waste storage building constructed with little thought of how it would eventually be emptied, but we have to tackle this mammoth task because the waste can't stay in there forever.
The hazard of the facility comprises three main areas really. One is the activity in the waste, and clearly we know we've got very, very high levels of activity within the material we're storing here. The second issue is the mobility of the waste, and we know that the waste is stored underwater, and water by its very nature, the liquor there is mobile. And the third issue is the quality of the containment, and the containment of particularly the older parts of the building is not to modern standards. You put all those three things together, you end up with a hazard and risk that tops the NDA estate, and it becomes a national priority. The retrievals machines operate on a very simple premise. It's a bit like a fairground grab, people that are familiar with those. Essentially, we lower a hydraulic grab into the waste, we close the grab, we retract it, and once it's in the operator bulge, we can see what we've got and we place it into a stainless steel skip. But we do not select the waste. It really is what do we find down there. And whilst we've got very good tipping records and historical understanding of what was placed into these silos, quite what we'll find remains to be seen.
Many hundreds of people have been working since the turn of the century on preparing to remove the waste, but the actual work of grabbing and lifting it out comes down to two operators inside the silo emptying plant machine. They could be compared to the first astronauts, with their hands on the controls, but a huge cast of people behind them who've made it possible.
Also, like NASA, there is a lot of teams and people who've done a lot of hard work in the background over many years, but a lot like the space program, yeah, we're in a point now where we'll sit behind the controls on day one and we'll press the button, and we basically go into a first, not just for the facility but for the site. So yeah, it's a very exciting opportunity for us all. It's an interesting job, believe it or not. I know we are retrieving waste that was never identified to ever come out the silo. This is waste that has been submerged for the best part of 4 decades. We don't know what state it's going to come out in. We might be able to identify it as the waste that was initially put in through the tipping records. So yeah, it is something that we are open to that side of things. We're basically learning on a daily basis.
This is the first of 3 waste retrievals machines, which will eventually all be working alongside each other. It will be doing its job for the next 20 or so years, so it's been built with maintenance in mind.
It's a very complex machine. It's a lot of individual modules which are designed to be unplugged, isolated mechanically and electrically, and removed if need be for repair. During commissioning we had an open gamma gate. We could walk inside the machine, we could repair the machine internally, but now that it is active, there's no way we can go through the transfer tunnel. Everything's contained now. One of the interesting characteristics of the retrievals machine, its capability to move from compartment to compartment. We can lift the machine up, basically jack the machine up, and drag it to the next compartment to retrieve future waste.
Our nuclear supply chain has been essential in working alongside Sellafield to manufacture and install the silo emptying plant, or SEP machines. Having built the first one, they're now working on installing number 2 of 3.
I'm part of the I3 team who has built and delivered the retrievals machine. Our focus now is not on SEP 2. We have currently handed that over. We did hand the machine over for ops to start retrieving from the silos. I3's focus now has gone on to building the next machine to start retrieving from the north side of the facility.
It's not just been about installing retrievals machines. Preparing the silo for operations has been a huge programme of work, including seismic strengthening of the building, installing new ventilation and inerting systems, building new cranes, and keeping the old building safe and secure throughout.
We've had to basically look after the asset that we've got to start with. So this was constructed, commenced in the 50s, and we tipped waste material into these silos through the 60s, 70s, 80s, culminating in the late 90s. So the asset itself is degrading over time. So one of our requirements was to make sure that the building was going to withstand the time that it's going to take to empty the waste material out. We do try to open up as many work fronts as possible on a daily basis, but we have to have a series of prioritisation calls made to make sure that we don't overly congest the working areas from either a conventional safety perspective or a radiological safety perspective.
Once the waste has been picked up, it's carried out of the plant in a shielded transport container and put into a highly engineered 3-metre cube box for safer storage. We're sending the waste to an existing store on site for the next few years while the construction of the brand new box encapsulation plant is completed. The new plant will be managing the drumbeat of 3 waste retrievals machines, each sending a skip of waste per day. The scale of the task ahead is huge. There are 22 waste compartments in the silo, each holding waste the equivalent volume of 6 double-decker buses. It's like emptying 22 wheelie bins slowly with 3 teaspoons, which is why it will take around 20 years to complete.
It's an iconic moment for the site. It coincides quite interestingly with the closure of the Magnox reprocessing programme after many, many years, and perhaps symbolic in the shift in emphasis from reprocessing into clean-up of the waste. We're having to deal with the legacy and the history of that reprocessing. We've had a lot of pride in that. Hopefully we can carry that pride and achievement forward into this next phase of the journey.
This is what the people in this facility and our supply chain partners have been waiting for. This has been years in the making. It's our job to manage the legacy that we've been handed and get the waste out.
We're taking waste out of an aging silo. We're going to put them into more fit-for-purpose storage packages and then downstream into more modern facilities. And that can only be a good thing, not just for the site, but also for the local and wider communities.